We have a lot of evidence online. I will tell you right now that I just searched for writing table on Google, and these were some of the first images that came up. And there's a lot of things to like within these things. If you look at this book cover on the left, we have, looks like coffee mugs and tea mugs, a big bowl of popcorn, a pretty comfy looking table here. I don't know if you can see this because of the yellow screen here, but this is actually a flat in San Francisco, or I mean in New York, probably in Brooklyn or something, of, I don't know, maybe 24 people sitting together, writing together. And there's a lot of things to like about this. More than anything, though, I think is the fact that this is taking place without any real authority figures. You get the feeling that people want to be here, that they feel at ease with being here. And there's a certain amount of autonomy when they go into these things in order to enjoy it. Let's see. What's making me reconsider my assumption, though, is that when you actually zoom into this particular photo, which I might be a little bit too hard on, but I think it's very emblematic about what is going on in the extracurriculum today in the 21st century, is that you actually do see that this is a different space, that it is something we need to consider. We got a dude down here with an earbud in his phone, in his ear. This girl's got her cell phone right at the ready. This girl up here is on her MacBook and might be connected to Wi-Fi, we don't know. And then we have this just annoying woman up here with her Bluetooth setting, right? So they're still using pen and paper, they're still congregated around, presumably talking about writing, but they're always connected to something else. Or maybe more to the point, they're always potentially connected to something else. And I think this is an interesting thing to talk about because one thing that always makes or could potentially make the transition from extracurriculum to academic space is problematic is that teachers often forget these two components of authority and autonomy. That at least for the past 30 years, the way that we've been defining extracurriculum hinges on those two particular things. What I would like to do is point out that we need to remap the extracurriculum by rethinking about what is actually taking place in these spaces. And to do this, I actually want to borrow from an anecdote given me by David Rose of the Center for Applied Special Technology in Boston. And he gave an anecdote that a GPS system is actually the best educator we have. Because the way a GPS system works is it first gives you kind of a diagnostic about here's where you are. And then the first thing it says is where you want to go. You punch in where you want to go. And then it tells you, well, I think it would be best if you go this way to get there. If you don't, it says, sorry, you probably should have gone back this way, but sure, let's go this way now. You know, like we'll get you back, right? It's visual, it's oral, it's talking to you, it's patient. It gives you step-by-step instructions. And then when you get there, there's usually a little checkered flag or some kind of reward that you've done good, right? And I think what's great about this as a good example of an educator in this new extracurriculum is that it is an authority figure. It knows more than we do. But it also gives us this feeling of autonomy, this idea that we can go cruise around town and end up where we need to be without worrying too much about it. And I think because it does that, these two things, there's a lot we can learn about it. It's becoming increasingly clear with other technologies that students do want to do this. This is an example of a Google Latitude, where you can see at the tagline at the top is, see where your friends are on a map, presuming that that's something we would want or need, right? But you can see that you can find your friends on a map here with Google Latitude, and somehow knowing where they are and knowing where you are is something that we would actually want. This is also from a recent Wired magazine article, which I'll come back to in a second, where the author actually decided to put everything he did online on his cell phone using GPS tracking, everything from Flickr photos to status messages on Twitter to status messages. And this was actually a visual he used in the article to show how specific in location we can actually get. That with normal cell phone towers, it can actually triangulate. So this is actually San Francisco. If you're in Soma, it knows you're in Soma. If you're on a Wi-Fi system, it knows you're on that block. If you're on GPS, it can tell you exactly where you are, almost on a step-by-step basis. So this is not only becoming increasingly something that people may or may not want or are being told that they want, it's also becoming something that's much, much more specific. And I think what I want to do is focus a little bit on cell phones, because the inspiration for our talk was Nidra Reynolds' Geographies of Writing book. And she actually says a couple things about cell phones that people realize where they are when they're on a cell phone. In a lot of ways, it makes them oblivious to where we are. But anytime you pause to think, should I take this call? Or if someone's cell phone went right now and you ran out, you would know where you were, probably more than you would usually admit to. That cell phones are actually given us this sense of place, whether it's public versus private, but also given us this kind of false sense of control. This idea that if I know where my friends are, then I somehow know more about where I am. Or if I can tell people where I am, I'm going to the store now, it gives me this kind of sense of autonomy, or this control, which then could be read as autonomy. So I think what's happening is we're getting this uneven reciprocity of public versus private. There's some things that are being privileged in cell phone uses and how people are using technologies that we're not really taking note of necessarily in our academic spaces. And what I want to show you is that this is indeed everywhere. That whether students actually want this or not, or even realize it, it's right there for them if they did want to take note. This is from Facebook, so you can actually see online friends here. And keep in mind that they can see us as well. And actually, the funny thing is, as I was taking this screenshot last Saturday, someone actually did see me online and started texting me and trying to talk with me. Same is true on MySpace. MySpace tells you who's online right now. Again, we're not being told what we're supposed to do with that. We just know they're online right now, right? So that's kind of the thing. You also see it, and I don't know if this is true of anyone else's institutions, but this is course management software at Michigan. It's called C-Tools. And if you can see there on the left, it says users present. This is my class website, and it makes a lot of sense why I'm the only person on there. This is about midnight last Saturday. If my students had been on there, I would have thought something was a little bit odd, right? However, if a paper is due on Tuesday, and I log on Monday night, my whole class is there. It's like looking at a roster. So I think this is kind of an interesting thing to take note of, because even on the teacher side of things, we're not really being told what to do with this. But I think what's most interesting and what's most salient for all of us today is the idea that this could lead to a performance aspect, where students are actually trying to perform for us in ways that show that they are engaged in the class, that their writing is somehow engaged in this type of thing. And I actually had a conversation on the way to C's 2 days ago in the car with Zach, who's sitting right there, who actually said whenever he logs into his course, there's always this one person there. And he started to wonder if, was it a she? Or he?
It was a she.
A she. If she was just kind of hanging out to show him that she was there. And you don't know. We don't know. I mean, that'd be a very savvy student if she were to do that, right? But even then, what does that actually mean, you know? But the fact is that students may or may not be catching on to this kind of thing.